It's the Eagle Community Television Forum with your host, Gary Shorman.
Hi everyone, I'm Gary Shorman, and this is the Forum on Eagle Community Television. We record the Forum program every Monday afternoon at 2 o'clock at our Dillon's location on Vine Street. So if you see some groceries going by, that's where we are. We have a special guest today, a guy that's running for Senate, the U.S. Senate seat in the state of Kansas. His name is Patrick Wiesner officially. I'll call you Pat Wiesner. How's that sound?
That's fine, thank you.
That work? And Pat, you're running for senator. You have a Democratic opponent that'll take, and you'll go race in the August 5th primary, and then if you win that, go against one of potentially current Senator Pat Roberts. What caused you to get in the race? And then we'll talk about an Ellis County boy and how you grew up and how you got here. But what caused you to say, I want to be a U.S. Senator?
I'd like to be part of the effort to pay off our public debt of about $18 trillion within 25 years. That requires more than a balanced budget. A balanced budget only gets us even. We need surpluses.
Well, you'd say pay that off. That's kind of interesting theory from a Democratic candidate. Would you say, is that, I mean, most of the time it seems like it's the other way around just in general when you look at Democrats versus Republicans.
That's the general thought, but the Republicans have not had luck in balancing budgets either. Throughout the 2000s, when President Bush was in office, we had, for the most part, a Republican Congress and a Republican Senate, and the budget increased every year, and we had deficits every year from 2001 on.
Well, the Senate race is going to be interesting. We'll come back and talk to that. But why is it important to us here in Ellis County? You're an Ellis County boy. What's your background?
Well, I grew up in Ellis. I grew up on a farm there that we raised wheat, alfalfa, beef cattle, and milo. And
Sounds like the Shorman farm up north of Abilene there in the Clay Center area.
Could be. Dry land, didn't have any irrigation.
Mm-hmm, that's it.
And so I went to St. Mary's grade school in Ellis for 8 years, and then I went to 4 years of Ellis High School and graduated in 1974. And after that, I went to Colby Community College for 2 years. And there I had a good experience. I learned a lot, and I met friends that I still have to this day. After that, I stayed out a couple of years and helped my dad farm. And then I went to Fort Hays and got degrees in accounting and chemistry from there, and a master's degree in business administration. After that, I worked as a CPA in my own firm in Hays until 1989. A local firm bought it from me, and then I went to law school at KU, and I got a degree I got my law degree in 1992 and started my own practice in Overland Park shortly thereafter.
So you've been practicing in Overland Park for a little over 20 years. What does your practice do, and what areas do you cover in Eastern Kansas?
I'm a tax guy first, and I'm also a CPA. And my clients are basically self-employed people who have not filed their returns in quite a while, or owe huge balances due. And what I do for them is I prepare their returns if they need to be. I get them a settlement with the IRS or the state of Kansas or the state of Missouri, or I take them into a Chapter 13 or Chapter 11 or Chapter 7 bankruptcy.
Well, you know, you mentioned paying off your debt. You know, obviously we've been, as a country, spending more than we've taken in, because you see that from the national debt. Is that part of your reason, kind of your background, your history in doing that, for getting into the political race?
No, I just have an aversion to debt. I don't, debt is a burden on everybody. It's if you have debts, you worry about paying it off. It's just part of our culture. I think it's a Western Kansas value, and maybe Eastern Kansas also, that we should get out of debt and we should all pay our bills.
I know if you go on your website, and that's one of the issues that you want to do, you talk about 25 years getting that done. How does anything get done in Washington, D.C.?
Well, I've got to make my case about why we've got to change, and instead of piling up more debt every year, we've got to reverse that and not only balance the budget, which is breaking even, but also paying down debt every year so that sometime in our lifetime, in the baby boomers' time that we've got left, that we can hand a debt-free country off to our children and grandchildren.
You know, one of the things that is exceedingly hard to do, and it seems like the people getting together to actually come to some sort of conclusion, and whether that's because there's so much diversity in our country to do that now. Do you have a plan for getting people together to do that?
Just the merits of what we get out of paying off our debt should be the selling point. And you know, that's not going to be easy because everybody's got their own constituency of getting federal dollars. We've got requirements for our retirees and people who are poor. We've got requirements for our defense budget. We've got promises made to farmers. There's just a lot of people who rely on the federal government for money.
And you see that happening. We'll come back and talk about some of the specifics of that. Our guest is Pat Wiesner. Pat is a candidate for a U.S. Senate seat for the state of Kansas. Back with more after this.
Youthful body, tight tummy, smooth facial lines. Greystone Cosmetic and Reconstructive Surgery is here to help you achieve your goals and give yourself the new look you've always wanted. Greystone offers sophisticated surgical and non-surgical cosmetic procedures. With services now available locally, there's no need to wait any longer. Contact Greystone Cosmetic and Reconstructive Surgery at Hayes Medical Center today or online at greystonecosmetic.hayesmed.com.
It's a beautiful day in our super high-speed internet great customer service neighborhood. Like you, this is where we live. In fact, our company is employee-owned, so it's our goal to improve the quality of life for everyone in our community by delivering faster, more reliable internet, clearer, more feature-laden phone service, quality TV channels, all with the level of customer service you'd expect from people who are your neighbors. Eagle Communications. Our community connected.
Welcome back to the second half of our forum program with Pat Wiesner, candidate for a U.S. Senate seat here in Kansas. If you have any questions, comments, please let me know. My email address is gary.shorman@eaglecom.net. You can also find us on Facebook under ECTV Forum. I'd like to hear from you. Our guest again is candidate for U.S. Senate seat in the state of Kansas. His name is Pat Wiesner. Grew up in Ellis. We talked about that on a farm. Does your family still farm out there?
Yeah, my family still owns a farm. My brother Mike operates it, and he does a pretty good job.
Does he require some help and assistance from you every once in a while?
All the time.
All the time. Well, you know, when you talk about people that represent us from Kansas, obviously you've done that. You have several opponents in the state. Tell me a little bit about your opponents you're running into.
I have a Democratic opponent. I've not met Mr. Chad Taylor. I understand he's the district attorney of Shawnee County, and from what I read about him, I can't find a thing wrong with him. So I'm going to have to.
So why vote for you versus him?
Well, because I got the ideas that I think are going to help Kansas out. So on the Republican side, obviously the incumbent Senator Roberts, who's been in office for 18 years this year. And he's got 3 opponents, and so they'll have an interesting primary. And I expect Senator Roberts to win the primary, and hopefully I'll be successful and can have a good debate for Kansas to choose their next senator.
Now, you mentioned debates because sometimes that's hard to do on the statewide basis. Would you anticipate having some debates, even on the Democratic side, where you can actually compare?
I think there'll be at least one debate before the primary, and then I expect there to be at least 1 or 2 debates between the Democratic and the Republican opponents.
Okay, debt's your number one issue. The VA has been in the news a lot recently. In fact, there's just an article, there's 1,000-some Kansas vets on a waiting list to get into the VA. You're a vet, or you're still actually serving and have served on 3 terms overseas. Tell us about your military background and the VA issue that's out there.
Okay, my military background is when I got out of law school, I wanted to get into the Army JAG Corps, and at the time they had no openings, so I was searching around, and I joined the Navy Reserves as a disbursements clerk. Mm-hmm. And I did that for 4 years until an opening came up in the Army Reserves where I got a direct commission as a judge advocate, which is a term for Army lawyer. And I was assigned to the 326th Area Support Group in Kansas City, and there our job was to prepare the units throughout Kansas and Missouri for deployments. We went and we did their wills and powers of attorney. We did legal briefings on them on the law, land warfare, their reemployment rights, the code of conduct, and the Service Member Civil Relief Act.
So you've been part of this part of the military then for over 20 years.
Since December of '92 is when I first joined the Navy Reserves.
Well, what's the VA issue? Is it just the fact that they're not doing a good job, or there just aren't enough docs, and how do you fix that should you become a senator?
I think it's a matter of adequate resources. I don't know about the care there. I am eligible for VA care. I've never used the system yet. My youngest sister is a physician, and she did an internship at the VA facility in Oklahoma City, and this was in the early 90s, and she said those issues were there in the early 90s already. So it's nothing new. It's nothing that happened under Secretary Shinseki. And so I believe they have a hard time retaining doctors and nurses, and so they'll have to address the personnel problem, and I think after that there's enough attention on it that the problem will get fixed.
You have a lot of work to do between now and the primary, just a couple months away, and then the race in November, obviously, for the race should you win the primary. What's your game plan for winning the primary, first things first?
Well, I am going to try to meet people all over the state and shake their hands and let them know what I intend to do as their senator. I believe I've got Kansas values of lower debt, less government, and take care of our children. And so I just want to go out and meet. I talk to people every day who are in financial trouble, so I know, I get it, what budgets are and how people are suffering. So we do need a safety net for our children, retirees, and disabled. But I do want to look at all the budget to see where we can do better and reduce our spending footprint.
One of the issues, and it always comes into play, is the amount of money that you have to do that, not only for just traveling and what you're doing that way, but running commercials and doing all of that. Do you stand a chance in this fight when it just comes down to how much money you can spend?
I'll be able to raise money if I can articulate my case that I'll be good for Kansas. I think once they like, if they hear what I have to say and they like what I want to do, I'll be supported by the people of Kansas. They'll eventually have my back, and so I just got to get out there and meet people and work hard all over Kansas.
Now, how do you do that? Now, I know you've gone through a couple deployments where you actually have had, because you have a law practice to run. How do you do that? Do you just take off the rest of the summer and travel?
Well,
that's almost what you have to do.
I'm going to work Johnson and Wyandotte, Douglas, and Shawnee counties during the week. And on weekends, I'm going to travel out to western Kansas and to the south by Wichita and central Kansas also. So that's the plan.
Well, good luck on that. And if somebody wants to find out more about you, what's the best way to do that?
Well, they can go to our website. It's wiesnerforsenate.com, and they'll get an email link there that they can send me their questions and introduce themselves. And our phone number's on there, and I'm easy to get a hold of, and I'll be glad to listen to whatever questions there are about how I'm going to help Kansas.
Well, there's a senator from Plainville that talks about how he grew up in Plainville. Having one from Ellis, is that a story that resonates with a lot of western Kansas? How about eastern Kansas?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know how that would resonate, but I'm from where I'm from, and I can't change that. But I've been working in Johnson County now for 20 plus years, so I think the people there know me. And I don't think in eastern Kansas they're much different than we are in western Kansas.
Well, good luck on your run. If you get a chance and want more, go to your website and check that out. You have a nice website that tells the information, your background. You can go from there. Pat, good to have you on our program today, and good luck with your race, especially in the Democratic, and then as you head into the campaign, if you win that one, the one in November for the Senate itself. So good luck with your race.
Well, Gary, thank you for this 15 minutes of fame.
Very good, very good. Pat Wiesner has been our guest here on The Forum. Forum is brought to you by Hayes Med and by Eagle Communications, our community connected.
Youthful body, tight tummy, smooth facial lines. Greystone Cosmetic and Reconstructive Surgery is here to help you achieve your goals and give yourself the new look you've always wanted. Greystone offers sophisticated surgical and non-surgical cosmetic procedures. With services now available locally, there's no need to wait any longer. Contact Greystone Cosmetic and Reconstructive Surgery at Hayes Medical Center today or online at greystonecosmetic.hayesmed.com.